What's going on, everybody? It is your boy Chris, man. We are here at the Work Hard, Play Harder podcast. It is Thursday, June 27th. My name is Chris Drummond. I am a freelance sports reporter based out of Minnesota. I'm also a casino host and proprietor of this podcast, Work Hard, Play Harder, where I bring individuals on to talk about their occupation, their why into their occupation, and get to know them outside of what they do. I got a special guest that's coming on with me today. Her name is Stephanie Valle. She has been with KBA TV, ABC7 for the past 22 plus years. She's been a news anchor, a news reporter, and also a podcast producer. She's the three-time award-winning podcast producer winner of the podcast Borderline Crime. So we're going to get to know her job, what she likes to do, fun questions as well, and just have a blast talking to her. So without any further ado, I introduce to you Stephanie.
Hi,
Hello there. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing very good, very good. Just want to say thank you, first off, for hopping on my podcast. I really do appreciate it. And ask you how your week is going so far.
Oh my gosh, it's been a really busy week. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I have a new Borderline Crimes podcast episode coming out today. So I think I mentioned like, oh, it depends on how busy I am today, but yeah, so I got that done. It's scheduled and ready to post tonight. I just launched another podcast with a board member of mine who we are on the film festival committee here in El Paso, and we started a new podcast to promote the film festival, and a new episode of that came out today. So it's been very busy.
I love that. I love to hear that. I love the background of your house, by the way. You
Thank
look
you.
absolutely amazing. I just want to say that as well.
Thank
Um,
you.
you're very welcome. Let me reiterate to why I wanted to bring you on here before I start like peppering you with all these questions. I know you've been a news anchor, a news reporter, and a podcast producer of your Borderline Crimes. I know you're a three-time award-winning podcast producer as well. I know that you're out there in El Paso, Texas at KBA TV, ABC7. I know you news anchor the 5, 6, and 10 show as well, doing a little background research that I do. So it was imperative. I'm a reporter myself. I report on sports, although we do two different genres. We both know how the industry is. We've both been in it for many years. Obviously, you a lot longer than myself, but I just want to talk to you and kind of get to know your story, kind of get to know where you started from, how'd you get there, and just break bread with you a little bit and just kind of network. So that's why I wanted to bring you on here for sure.
Well, I'm happy to be here, and I know that you had reached out before. I'm just so glad that we're able to finally do this.
Absolutely, no question. So, Stephanie, the first question that I normally have for my guests that always come on here is, what is your why? Right? What is your why of doing what you do? Did you have any role models? Did you have any inspirations growing up? What is your why of getting into journalism?
Well, I guess my whole reason why I got into journalism is when I was a kid, my mom would always watch the news, and so um, I found that it was a very interesting to know what was going on. I liked knowing what was going on. And she watched the news in the evenings. She read the newspaper. And so I started reading the newspaper, and I felt that there was a lot of value to that. It wasn't just me like trying to please her. It became this thing of where I was learning a lot, and it was coming in handy in school. And I would talk to my friends, and they had no idea about what was going on. And I liked telling them what was going on. And
Yeah.
then when I was in high school, it evolved into this broadcasting class that we had there. So like just in a micro format of telling people what was happening in the school, I found was really um, fulfilling. So my why is I want to tell people, I want to help inform people about what's going on in their community. And so when I was in college, I reached out to my broadcasting teacher from high school and
Mhm.
told him, look, I'm here at UTEP, which is the University of Texas, El Paso,
Yep.
and they don't have a broadcasting program, and I just kind of feel like I don't know what I'm doing here in terms of broadcasting. So he said, well, why don't you try to get an internship at a TV station? I know someone who works at the ABC affiliate. And so he put me in touch with someone who works at the ABC affiliate. I was able to get an internship, and then the rest is kind of history. So
Mm,
I've been at the ABC affiliate here in El Paso, KVIA, ever since August of 2001. I was hired on as a reporter and production assistant. And
right.
it was just so exciting to be in a real functioning newsroom with people who had the same passion that I did, which
Right.
was to be able to tell stories. So I learned from some really great people. It only heightened my passion for it, because I know, like, as you know, like once you get into the field, sometimes it could be really intimidating. Sometimes you
Yeah,
realize this isn't for me, but instead I was like, no, this is exactly where I want to be right now.
absolutely. You know, to be in this industry, you got to develop some tough skin. You're going to go through some things, but
Yeah.
there's an A side, there's a B side. That's what I always say. The A side is storytelling, right? Storytelling. We love talking to people. We love being pillars in our community. There's no greater feeling that I've had driving around the city that I'm in and having a grandmother or a mom come up to me and say, I really love the story that you did. I really
Yeah.
love the story that you did, right? So I love that feeling. I just say thank you, ma'am, and keep it going. But that's what I do. That's what I love to do. That's what we love to do. It has to be special for you though, because it's a rarity that you come out of the gate to be able to be in your hometown telling stories, right? How special is
Yeah.
that growing up in El Paso, growing up in Texas, and being able to story tell there?
You're absolutely right. It is very special. It honestly, though, it wasn't my goal. I had wanted to move on to bigger and better things.
Sure.
Uh, but there was some benefit to being in my hometown, like being able to graduate from the college here and then walk right into a station. Um, but yes, it is very special to be able to tell the stories of my community and know what my community is and who the people are and who I'm trying to reach and what matters to them. I think that also being here for so long, I have some insight.
Yeah.
I understand the context of things that are happening. And I'm not to say that, you know, people who move to a city to report don't have the same um, passion,
Right.
but it does, there is something to knowing the background and being able to put things into context that really make a big difference. For instance, uh, in December, or rather in November, I was able to cover something that, you know, I'm not I don't want to sound blasé about it at all, but I attended an execution for a convicted child killer. And it
Wow.
was a story that I had actually covered at the onset when the murder happened.
Right.
As a very young reporter, I had covered some of the peripheral stories because obviously the more experienced reporters were covering the nuts and bolts of the story. But over time, um, I was able to do more research on the story. I ended up speaking to family members. That became an episode of the podcast when I looked back on the case 20 years later. And then when his execution was scheduled, I wanted to be there because this was something that I had a vested interest in, not just as a reporter, but as a member of the community, having reported on it, watching this family experience it, but also then becoming a parent and understanding the pain and grief that they must have felt at the time. So being able to come full circle is also a very special experience that a lot of reporters don't get because there is so much movement in our industry.
Absolutely. No question about it. You talk about going to UTEP. Were there any other schools that could have persuaded you from going to UTEP?
So we are right on the border. in Texas with New Mexico. And so I could have gone to New Mexico State University, which is a university in Las Cruces, which is
Yep.
considered our sister city. It's about a 45-minute, hour-long drive away from El Paso. They have a very good journalism program. And I'm not just saying that because I work with people who go to NMSU and they have graduated a lot of great people and great talent, but they really do have a great program up there. But it was just one of those things that coming from a Hispanic family with a mom who's very much, I need you close. It, I don't know if it ever really was an option to go.
Sure.
I had also looked into going to what is now Texas State University, which is in San Marcos, which is near San Antonio, which is about 8 hours from El Paso on a flight
Right.
or on a
Right.
drive. So again, it was that issue of my mom being like, "Oh, but you'll just be so far," and this, I would want to take this moment to tell people who are listening, like, you got to live your own life, and your parents are going to tell you things that are in their best interest. But do they have? They always say they have your best interest at heart, but a lot of the times the things they say are because they are motivated by their own interests. As a
Sure.
parent, I can say that I battle that all the time where I'm like, I want my kids to be a certain way, but they are also their own people. And so, I do wish that I had had some gumption and tried to do my own thing, but the influence of parents, it cannot be understated.
No question about that. And listen, at that particular age, right? You're 18, we're 18, 19 years old, trying to
Hmm.
decide. We don't really know a lot what's going on. Everything is just running at full speed in our minds. We're trying to decide things in a timely manner, and we feel like we don't have enough time in the day, right? Life really does slow down for you when you get older. It
Right.
really does. Things slow down. You put things into perspective a whole lot more.
Yeah.
Then you be like, you know what? No, I don't think that is the best choice for me. I don't think that is. I think I want to do something different. I hear what you're saying, but I think we could do something different and it can be right too. And it can be comfortable for me, right? I know
Right.
that's my mindset. I mean, obviously me being I'm in my 30s. I don't have any children, but I'm in my 30s. And when I remember when I was 19, I was not thinking fully straight. I know I wasn't. I would just go, 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 go all the time. Now I'm really calculated about the decisions that I make, whether it's about life or anything in junction. So you're totally right. I hope people do listen to that because that's real, no question. I want to ask you some favorite questions, by the way. I got a list of questions here, and you just tell me some of your favorite things based upon it. Okay.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Favorite meal you like to cook?
Oh my gosh, the favorite meal I like to cook. I I really do enjoy making a couple things, but one is chicken enchiladas.
Ooh,
Um
okay.
I I work at night, and enchiladas can be a very long process. So I have found some shortcuts where instead of rolling them, I stack them so it's like a lasagna.
Oh,
Um, yeah, and sometimes I'll make chicken in the slow cooker and then use that chicken in the enchiladas. But with like Munster cheese and
hmm,
I find a good store bought sauce is fine. It's all about the heat and the
hmm,
meltiness of it.
hmm.
It works. I love chicken enchiladas.
You got my mouth watering over here, girl. I mean, that sounds so good. I mean, I've only used a slow cooker to cook roast most of the
Oh.
so I do roast. And like you said, when you work at night, I do sports. So sports
Hmm.
is night and weekend. So I'm trying to make something quick. So
Yeah.
tacos will be it for me. Tacos, throw it in the skillet, make that real quick. I'm good with that. So
Yeah.
I feel that. Okay. Ooh, chicken enchiladas. All right. Favorite concert you've ever attended?
Oh my God. I have two because one, let's see, I saw recently, I saw Foo Fighters in El Paso.
Okay.
And man, Dave Grohl puts on an amazing show. He is a fun guy, he's full of energy. And I had seen them before, but seeing them in my hometown where everybody in El Paso, like we don't get a lot of nice things. There's kind of like, like we don't like, this is why we don't have nice things. Like there's always like that thing of like, we're bigger than a small town, but we're smaller than the big towns, and we're just
Mm,
like a pass through. So for Foo Fighters to finally come to El Paso
yeah.
after being a band for 30 years was like such a treat, and everybody was just feeling it. So that was a lot of fun. But I think one of my favorite concerts of all time has to have been when I saw Nine Inch Nails in like, it might have been 2008, and they were doing a farewell tour with
Okay.
Jane's Addiction,
Oh,
and
wow.
they just played all of their best songs. And I was there with my best friend, and every time they started, we were just like, this is the song, and we were just so excited. So
Mm,
I think
okay.
that's those two bands. I don't think people would normally associate them with me, but I love Nine Inch Nails and I love Foo Fighters.
Yeah, Dave Grohl, definitely one of the best singers out there. No question about it.
Yeah,
The best of you is probably one of my favorite songs of theirs.
yeah.
Um, for sure. It gets me going every time I play it in the gym. It does, no question. Okay, I'm with you on that. Favorite place you've ever traveled to?
Okay. I've been fortunate to travel to a lot of places, but I think my favorite place that I've been has been Rome in
Mm,
Italy. I went about 20 years ago for college. I was able to get a college credit, and that was probably one of the few times where I've traveled. And because I was with the school group, because I wasn't really like, I mean, I was working, but not like the way I am now with like children and everything. The limitations were not there. And I
right.
was there for 2 weeks, and I just felt fully immersed in this city, eating foods that they were eating. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful city. The museums were amazing. Seeing the Trevi Fountain in person, and
Oh,
the Pantheon, and being in the Colosseum, and it was amazing, an amazing learning experience as well, because like I said, I was there for a class, and so we were getting a lot of the history of the places, and everything was put into context, and it was a great trip for so many reasons for that.
yeah, I definitely would have loved to see the Colosseums. No question about it. I'm a huge museum person, so I love just seeing history and art and different things of that nature. I bet the food was just amazing as well.
So good.
Um, no doubt on my bucket list to go for sure one of these days. I'm a sports guy, so I got to ask you a sports question. Favorite sport you like to watch in person? Favorite sport you like to watch on TV? It could be the same sport.
Okay. So my favorite sport to watch in on TV is tennis. I love watching tennis. Actually, did I say in person or on TV?
I think
I
you
like,
said on TV.
okay. I would say I like watching that in person as well,
Okay.
because I've seen maybe like a match. They were like amateurs, but it's still fun to be there in person, and to watch that. But I also love watching soccer, and watching soccer on television has only been my way of watching it. We go to locomotive games here. I've been a couple times with my kids, and it's fun, but I like being able to watch it in a place where there are a lot of like soccer fans, and that's usually
Yeah.
on television, like at a bar or something like that. So I love watching soccer. I love watching tennis.
Are you a Federer or Nadal person?
I Gosh, I was kind of controversial. I liked Djokovic for a long time.
Mm,
So he was just like the outside guy. But I liked both Federer and Nadal, but I liked
mm,
having Djokovic in there as the spoiler. And he's so like limber and athletic and long and gangly. And he's just a very interesting person to watch. Federer is so clean. He's just so stylized and just perfect. Like there's hardly a hair that goes
right.
askew. So it's fun to watch for his how clean and perfect he plays.
Different, right? Federer's the clean cut, crisp tennis player. I'm about to say soccer player. Sorry, tennis player. Nadal's reckless. Nadal's probably my favorite. He's probably the most reckless of the three when he plays. Uh,
Hmm.
and then Djokovic has always been that guy that's been the spoiler. Djokovic just gave Nadal a lot of problems. And
Yeah.
then, as Federer got older, Djokovic started to give Federer problems as well. So I love those three. I love the fact you mentioned that. I've always been a Nadal guy, but it's good to hear somebody say Djokovic's name because he's one of the greatest to play too. He's one of the greatest to ever play.
Yeah,
Now,
for sure.
my all-time favorite is Andre Agassi. Andre Agassi is my all-time favorite for sure.
He is, yes, he is my all-time favorite as well. Again, going back to like him with Pete Sampras,
Yeah.
and Agassi is like the bad boy. And
Hmm.
he was just so much fun to watch. And he made the sport, I think, very accessible because tennis has always been that country club sport.
Yep.
And Sampras, I think, exemplifies that a little more than Agassi. And but he was like like the bad boy rock and roll guy, and he was really fun to watch. And with that said, I know we talk a lot about men's sports, but watching Serena and Venus Williams play
Hmm.
tennis,
Yep.
like Serena kills those serves and she's so strong and really inspiring. And I know that a lot of people would give her a hard time for her attitude, which again, I think is doubly unfair because we don't give as much attitude to men when they have the same attitudes. Instead,
I
they get
agree.
the commentator jobs, like
I
thinking of
agree.
like McEnroe. He's a commentator on tennis, and he was such a horrible sport. and
It was.
and Venus, I think, I mean, Serena, I think, she had a mouth on her, but who cares? Like men have mouths on them too, and they would mouth off quite a bit. And also
Mhm.
because I do think because she is Black, I think that was also another reason why they would give her
No
an
question. No
unfair hard
question.
time.
Yeah.
So, but so I, no matter what, like I love Serena and what she did for women's tennis and what she does for, women in general in sport.
No question. She's the GOAT of women's tennis of all time and not just because of the Grand Slam titles, not because of just the wins, but she's somebody who just came from literally nothing and just came up and was one of the most dominant players to ever play. Yes, it's absolutely true. She definitely gets black because she's minority. No question
Yeah.
about it. But that's just the way it is in its society, unfortunately. But I agree, she's definitely the GOAT. Last and favorites.
Okay.
Favorite restaurant you like to eat at?
Oh man, that's such a tough question. There are so many good places here in El Paso, and
Mhm.
someone actually was just telling me the other day that El Paso has more restaurants per capita than other cities. So I found that interesting, and that's a tough question, I got to say, because I do like a lot of local restaurants here in town. So the one that pops into my head that I always tell people that I love to go to is a restaurant called Carlos and Mickey's. It's a
Okay.
locally owned Mexican restaurant. The food is good, don't get me wrong. I don't think it's the best Mexican food that you can get in a restaurant, but the
Mhm.
atmosphere is really fun. On certain days, they have mariachis or they have live music. You can get a margarita that they call the Texas margarita that is like as big as and I'm not exaggerating, like when I'm putting my hands together, it's like this big.
Right.
So you can like put your face in this margarita glass and they'll limit you how many you get. So they're like, we can only have so many per table. So it's a fun time. The salsa is great. So yeah, I always like taking people there because of all of the other things, the experience more so than the food, but I do love eating there.
Absolutely. I have family in Texas. I typically go there every year to try to visit. It's probably a little ways from El Paso though, because my brother's located in Houston.
Oh yeah, that's like a
Um,
12-hour
yeah,
drive.
yeah. So yeah, it's a
Texas is
little
so
ways.
big.
It is. It is. So it was shocking, Stephanie, when I first went there and started driving. I actually went out there for a career fair and also to visit my brother. So y'all have tolls, and I'm not used to riding around with tolls at all. And I was trying to get over to another lane to where I could just drive on the freeway. And all of a sudden, this lane led me to a toll, and I was like, "What in the hell?" And then I get like something in the mail where it took like a picture of my tag, and I got
Mhm.
fined. I was like, "What?" I've never heard no. I never heard no business like that. So I was
You don't
like,
have
I don't
tolls?
no, no,
Oh,
no.
wow.
And I lived in Atlanta where there's places where they have tolls, but I haven't went through it. I didn't have to go through those tolls to get to where I needed to go. Um, and I also grew up in San Diego. San Diego didn't have tolls.
I
So,
love San Diego. I was just there like a few weeks ago.
okay, okay, okay. How long was you there for?
I was there for about 5 days. I have family out there.
Oh, so do I. Okay, got you, got you. Yeah, my family lives in the Mission Valley area. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah, so absolutely. So I have cousins that live there. Like I said, my brother was in Houston, so I love Texas, but Texas is big. No
It
question
is.
about that.
Yeah, we don't have tolls in El Paso, just to let you know. In fact, we
Oh,
closed down like a lot of people fought against getting a toll lane in El Paso. So toll free, come here.
well, if I ever do come there, I'm definitely gonna hit you up for sure. No question. No question. Okay, here we go. I want to talk to you about your day to day.
Okay.
As you know, journalism is different every day, right? There's never a day where it's the same. You're talking about different news stories, different things going on. What is your process, right? I know it said in the research that you anchor to 5, 6, and 10 p.m. So, what is your process of being a news anchor doing that as opposed to being a news reporter? If you do still go out into the field and you have to do that.
Yeah. I've been anchoring the 5, 6, and 10 for 4.5 years now, and working a night schedule, which is like a 1:45 to 10:45. Hasn't always been my favorite schedule. I worked the morning show for like 10 years. And I'm just a morning person, but so it's still an adjustment. So what I try to do is after our news meeting where we go over everything, that's when I take the time to either work on a podcast, which is also it's owned by KBIA. I created it, but it's owned by them. So I'm making calls, I'm doing research, I'm setting up interviews. Sometimes if it gets to a point where I'm writing it, I'm writing it at that time. So I'm really trying to like fit my reporting time into my schedule. It's so easy as someone who enjoys doing what I do to want to volunteer to do things outside of my work schedule. So I'll be like, oh yeah, I can meet you for an interview at 10 a.m. talking to like someone I need to talk to, because everybody else has normal schedules, right? Like they work an
Sure.
8 to 5. So, meeting for an interview at 3 o'clock in the afternoon doesn't work for everybody. So I do try to, I try to keep everything within my work hours, but sometimes I schedule stuff in the morning. And then I'm having to, go over scripts. So I do a lot of copy editing on the 5 and the 6, because of course, like when you're reading a story, you have to make it sound like it is coming from your mind and your own mouth. And if you're reading something that doesn't make sense, or you wouldn't have said it this way, then it kind of adds a disconnect. And my
Sure.
job as an anchor is to connect and make things relatable. So I have to make sure that I give myself time to get into those scripts and do a lot of proofreading,
Right.
restructuring, spelling, all of that. So that, and then it's like repeat. Once we finish the 5 and 6, then I have dinner with my family. I come home, see my kids. They're 12 and 14.
Okay.
So I come home, we have dinner, we have some time together, and then I go back and then I do the same thing, reading the scripts and
Wow.
proofreading, and then the 10 o'clock is on and then it's over. It's a strange schedule, I will say, because in my entire career, all of the anchoring that I did was together, whether it was like a morning show, and I anchored weekends too, but I didn't have kids, and kids just changes everything, like how you
Yeah.
are trying to be there for them as well. So when I anchored the morning show, all of that anchoring was happening at the very beginning of my shift. So I'd come in and we would anchor, and then I would have the rest of the morning to like put reports together. And then it was over. So like to have the anchoring sprinkled in among my schedule has been a
Right.
continual challenge to adjust to, in the nicest way I can say it.
No, I feel that. I do. And that leads me to another great question, which is mental health and work life balance. Now, as you know, Stephanie, in this industry, mental health is super important. And it's super important in any industry that you go in, but it's being
Yeah.
talked about more and more, especially in journalism. You hear words like burnout, you hear words like overworked and underpaid, and you
Yeah.
see some of our colleagues have kind of distanced themselves from this industry and went off and did other things.
Yeah.
Um, Now, obviously, you being super mom here, which is amazing, what you do, right? Talk to me about your work-life balance. Like you said, that is a uniquely odd schedule that you have, right?
Yeah.
Working at one something to 10 something, but also having two teenage kids, and doing anchoring and stories. Talk about your mental health as well. Like, how do you balance good mental health and still keep that work-life balance?
I find that my mental health is best aided when I am able to work out. So if I'm running, I run in the morning. It's my own time, where I'm listening to music or I'm listening to a podcast, like news podcast usually. Um,
Sure.
so I give myself like an hour where I'm either running or I'm at the gym. And that I found has been a great help to me, because if I have a morning where I can't work out and I have to jump right into work, I feel so stressed and then like lethargic after. So that has been something that has been very important to me. Um, and just making time for myself. I think a lot of people feel like they can't take time for themselves,
Yeah.
whether it be like, okay, you want to just stare at your phone and like play Wordle or do a crossword or scroll through Instagram. That's okay, as long as you're like aware that you're going to just do that for a little bit and then you're going to do something else. I've tried to get back into reading. I love reading.
Okay.
So the times that I will, not have a podcast that I'm working on, or I just finished one, I'm like, okay, I'm going to read. And so I'll take time to read. I think those things are really important for mental health. You can't always be on. And I think in this job, like I mentioned earlier, you're just trying to meet people where they are and when they are available in order to
Sure.
get the story. And that's when I'm like, okay, well, if I worked like 2 hours this morning, then I'm going to make sure that I give myself that time back, whether it be, my dinner break. Maybe I'll take a little longer of a dinner break, or I'll come in a little later or something. And I try to always attend our news meetings, but um, thankfully we were able to do some of them through Microsoft Teams. And so I'll just like, I'll join the meeting on Teams and I'm listening, but I'm, taking care of stuff at home that I wasn't able to because I was reporting. So I find that to be something that I have to do for myself. It is a tough industry, and I think there are still a lot of managers in the buildings who they care a lot about getting the story, but they
Sure.
also have to understand that they have actual human beings, and more we are dealing with younger people who care about their mental health more than I think millennials and Gen Xers were aware of. And I have
Mhm.
to get my cat 1 second.
No,
'Cause
you're good.
okay, because he likes to jump up and get really too close to my plants. So he does that for
You're okay.
attention. Yeah.
That is all right. That is all
Yeah.
right.
I'm gonna open the window for him so he can look out the window real quick. There. It's funny. This is my first cat, and they love looking out windows. It's really cute.
It is. Yeah, I bought my mother a cat last Christmas because she loves cats. So
Oh.
her cat, and the cat just goes all over the place. Loves to go out and play with other cats. The other cats will come to the window, so she'll go to the window and then run out. So yeah, I totally, I really do. But yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. It's a question worth asking, because of the fact of what you just talked about, mental health. A lot of these managers and hierarchy positions care about the bottom line, right? They don't care about an individual's mental health. And you have to put that first. I'm glad you said working out is one of the things you like to do. I also like to work out. I have a membership here at the Y. I like to go to it in the mornings. I like to write poetry. I'm also still a huge mama's boy. Although I'm a grown man, I love calling mama and just talking to her, just having regular conversations with her about life and making sure that she's okay. If
Yeah.
she needed anything, she can always count on me. And that's the kind of questions and things that I like to do. If someone, Stephanie, came up to you and said, I want to do what you do, right? Whether it's an intern, whether it's a postgraduate, somebody who just graduated, or somebody seasoned like myself, right? That's been in the industry for a few years. What kind of advice would you give them?
Well, I would definitely tell them that they need to make sure that they are curious. I think in this job, it requires curiosity, and that's hard to teach because people do come up and ask me, like, well, how do you do what you do? I've always been curious, and I would nurture that. So I would also say, please, please, please dedicate yourself to reading the newspaper or like articles online,
Mhm.
not just like the New York Times, but local news, because that will help you understand what's going on in your community and and understand what's important in your community.
Yeah,
It might also prompt questions. A lot of these stories will, say like, hey, there's a meeting coming up and we're going to be discussing this issue. And then you're going to see what the conflict or the controversy is. And then maybe you will have questions about it. You will attend the meeting as a reporter, and then you're going to talk to people and get more information about what their issue is. And maybe you'll come away with stories. I think
yeah,
that, that's what I would tell people to do, is make sure that they are putting themselves out there. Reporters have to be on the ground. You have to understand what is happening in your community in order to report on what is happening in your community. And if you're in the newsroom and someone's just telling you, hey, do this story, and that's all you're doing every single day, it's going to be really hard for you to feel confident in your ability to curate stories of your own. And and you understand this as someone who is a reporter and someone who writes, is when you are able to write your own story with the understanding that comes with it, it gives you so much more confidence, and then the ability to wake up the next morning and say, this is something I want to work on.
right,
I think that part of the reason why we lose so many people in our industry is not only because of the stress of the job, but also because they feel like, I don't know what I'm doing and this isn't for me and I don't feel supported. And that
right,
is a big problem in newsrooms, is that there is not like a support structure. We're still dealing with the whole like sink or swim. You got to be thrown in the fire to
yeah,
learn. But I do feel like they need people need to get in there and get their hands dirty. And I would highly encourage interns and young reporters to not feel intimidated away from asking questions that will better yourself. When I was an intern, I asked reporters if I could shadow them. I asked, why are you doing this? And, um, why did you ask this? And what made you want to ask this question or do this story? And then do it myself, like write my own version of their story and then ask for feedback. I think that people today are too scared to ask for feedback, and not all of them, but a lot of people
right,
don't like to be criticized, and who does?
right.
But you don't learn from your successes as much as you learn from your mistakes. And that's something I tell my kids, like, you shouldn't feel bad if you mess up, because now you know what works and you know what doesn't work, and then you
Right.
can get better that way. And so when I have reporters who go on air and they don't ask for any feedback, sometimes I don't offer it, because I have told them to come talk to me and they don't. And then they go on air and I'm like, I
Well, that's
wouldn't
what I
do
asked.
it that way.
Okay.
And yeah, but you have to be open to be like, hey, can you watch my story, or can you look over my script and let me know like what you think? And I appreciate when I have reporters who do that. And I wish more would feel comfortable doing that.
Absolutely. You hit it right on the head. Like, I don't know how you get better. I don't know how you perfect your craft of journalism, of writing, of shooting, or editing, or anchoring, or reporting without asking other individuals. Everybody needs some kind of assistance to be able to get to where they want to get to in this field, whether it's
Right.
going different market, whether it's staying in your same market, doesn't matter. I know I've asked for help. I've been asked to be thrown into the fire because for me, I think I learn best trial by fire. I want to be able to, if you're covering a game, I want to cover a game. I want to do that. And whatever mistakes I make, I'm cool with the criticism because I know it's not 9 times out of 10 when you do get is constructive criticism. 9 times out of 10. You do have those special cases where you find where criticism may be a little out of bounds. But if you're questioning that criticism out of bounds, then you need to go to a hierarchy and talk about that and sit down and talk about that and be like, okay, but have those stats of like, okay, this person said this and this. I do believe that you're absolutely right as far as people not going up to people. Um, I wouldn't imagine nobody don't want to go up to you though. I mean, somebody that's been in the industry and talked about it. You've done all kind of news stories of anchoring and stuff like that. I wouldn't understand why, but again, people have their reasons so why they don't want to come up to. But it just bewilders me why
Yeah.
people don't want to go to people that are experienced and seasoned in the business because this is where you learn. You learn to make mistakes in smaller markets. That way, when you get to the bigger markets, you're more prepared and because you talk to individuals and stuff like that. Great segue to this question though, because you have been doing a lot of news stories. I want to know how hard is it for you to separate yourself from hard news stories? And the reason why I ask this question is this also could be some advice to people that want to do news. It shied me away from news, Stephanie. Okay, that's why I
Yeah.
chose sports. Sports is winners and losers for the
Mhm.
most part, unless you're doing a feature story. You get the kids that cry, no question about it, when their season ends. It's tough. But you going into it knowing that that could possibly happen, right? You don't walk out your door thinking, oh my God, somebody might be outside of it and somebody might be hiding and get shot. Or you leave your home and come back to it and it's burnt down.
Yeah.
Or something tragic happens. How do you, do you separate yourself from hard news stories or do you bring them home with you?
When I first started out, I think it was very easy to fall into uh, that habit, if you will, of reporting on something and then letting it fester in your mind. And I remember that I had covered this really awful story, a house fire, and the whole family died. And I just let it sit with me for days and days. And I realized I need to, this is this trauma that I'm taking on is not, there's nothing I can do about it. And it's not my trauma. And I don't want to sound insensitive, but
Mhm.
it is definitely one of those things where I had to learn to compartmentalize. I had to
Okay.
say, like, I can feel this pain. I can allow myself to feel the pain of the story that I'm reporting on, because that, if anything, makes me more responsible in telling it in a way that is sensitive to the people involved. But when I finish my story for the day, I need to let this go. I
Okay.
need to be able to focus on my own life, take the lessons that came from the story that I did, but also understand that I am lucky enough that this is not my trauma, and live my life the way I am living my life, like, like live my life.
Right.
So I'm telling you, there are plenty of stories that I've done, like for the podcast. El Paso had a mass shooting 5 years ago. We're coming up on the 5th anniversary actually in August.
Right.
And those traumas will sit with you because you're watching your community affected, or you see parallels in a victim to your own life. And I sit with those. I'll cry. I talk about like what hurt me about it. And then I'm like, okay, now I got to use my pain to tell this story in the best way possible for my community to understand the pain, to understand like where this pain is coming from for people,
Sure.
and then have to compartmentalize it and then be able to live my life without the grief. Because if I allowed myself to carry the grief of every single story I've told that has been tragic, I don't know how I would get up in the morning.
Yeah, it's tough. I just couldn't imagine myself sticking a microphone to some. Listen, we all have a job to do.
Yeah.
Preface that we have a job to do, right? And we love to do our job, but
Mm.
it's sometimes it's tough to stick a microphone in a mother's face when a child dies or something tragic.
Yeah.
It's just tough for me. Um,
Can I
with
say,
that, Go
Oh,
ahead.
I was just
Go
gonna
ahead.
say, like, if we're giving advice, I would say for people who have to be in that situation, it's more about asking that grieving mother to talk about her child so we all know who our community lost.
Right. That's true.
Um,
Yep.
this is, this is your opportunity. We want to learn about who he or she was.
Hmm.
And, obviously you can't ask the question, how do you feel? But it's
Right.
about like, tell us about them. Tell us who they were and what they meant to you. And I think that allows that grieving person to talk about their loss without feeling like they're being ambushed at their
Right.
most vulnerable moment.
Sure. Absolutely. Remembrance is what you're talking about of that individual. No question.
Right.
If Stephanie wasn't involved in journalism or media, what career choice would she have chosen to pursue and why?
God, that's a hard question because I've wanted to do this since I was like 7 years old. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I guess if I were to do anything else, maybe I would want to be like an architect. I always liked playing Legos as a kid. Um, I also really love fitness and nutrition. I try to eat well, and I think that's something that I would want to spread because I think that so many people don't take care of themselves, and it doesn't have to be like an iceberg lettuce salad and shredded carrots. So I would want to do that for people to find like joy in caring for themselves. So maybe
Sure.
like a nutritionist or a dietitian or something like that.
I
That's
can
what older
certainly
Stephanie would have done.
I can certainly see that. I can because you talk very passionately about running and fitness, so that's something I can definitely see for sure. What is some advice that someone has gave you that you hold on dearly to? Right, we talked about you giving advice, but what is some advice that someone has gave you that you hold on dearly to?
Hmm. It's actually not even related to my job. But I think that the best advice I was given was like, be nice to yourself. And I think we can all be our worst critics. We can speak so harshly to ourselves when we mess up. But would you ever speak to your friend that way? No,
Right,
probably not. We wouldn't have friends. I tell my daughter that, like, if you spoke to your friends the way you speak to me, sometimes you would not have friends. So I would say the best advice I ever got was like, it started off as a question. I was saying something and she told me, why are you being so hard on yourself? Like, why can't you be nice to yourself? And
right.
it was very eye-opening.
Okay.
So that's what I would say is like, I would encourage people to, when they feel themselves being belittling to themselves, to step back and say like, how come I can't be nice? How would I say
Right.
this if it were my friend going through or experiencing the same thing?
Sure. Absolutely. I always like to be yourself at all times, right? If you're not comfortable with yourself, then it starts there. It's hard for you to be nice. It's hard for you to be anything to anybody else or love anybody else if you don't love yourself. Start with self first. And once you do that, then you can start loving other people. We're coming to the end, so we got some rapid fire questions or rapid fire thoughts in your mind. So first thing that comes to your mind, I want you to say it based upon these questions. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Here we go. Favorite color.
Pink.
Okay. Favorite sports movie.
Oh my gosh. Uh, Dodgeball.
Okay. I love that. That's pretty good. If I'm not mistaken, that's Vince Vaughn. Vince Vaughn in Dodgeball. I believe that
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ben Stiller. Yeah.
Mine would be Remember the Titans. Okay. I
Okay.
like that.
Oh,
I
I
like
should
that.
say, I kind of changed my answer. I got to say Glory Road because it's based on the 1966 Texas Western basketball NCAA championship team, which is based in El Paso. So I changed my
It is.
answer.
That's a beautiful team. If I'm not mistaken, they beat Kentucky, University of Kentucky, a team that they beat. So
Yeah.
I know about that. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, favorite board game. Now you got two teenagers, so I know you probably play some board games.
I love Clue.
Okay, so you like investigation and solving mysteries is what you like.
Go
I love
figure.
it. I love it. Right, right. I'm a Monopoly guy, so I love
Oh,
Monopoly. Okay, here we
so
go.
tough.
Favorite card game?
Card game. I like Speed. Did you ever play
Okay,
Speed?
yeah. My favorite one is Spades. I like Spades.
Oh, yeah, that one's fun.
Huge Spades game. Okay, here we go. If you had a choice to listen to 3 albums with no skips, what would those albums be and why?
I would listen to Nine Inch Nails, A Downward Spiral. I would listen to Radiohead, In Rainbows, and I would listen to Bjork, Post. All
Okay.
those albums, they're like classic albums to me. I don't know. They just flow. No bad songs. They all like represent a time in my life that you know, bring good memories or bring good feelings. And I those are my 3 favorite artists. So therefore those bands.
I love it. Would you listen to Avenged Sevenfold or Judas Priest?
Neither.
Ooh, ooh.
I
Oh,
know, sorry. That's a
okay.
little too
Okay.
hard.
That a little bit too hard. Okay. Would you rather listen to Maroon 5 or Breaking Benjamin?
I guess I would listen to Maroon 5.
Oh, okay. Okay. Are you not a huge fan of neither one?
No.
Okay. So what kind of music do you like? Like,
I
what's that genre?
I guess I grew up in the 90s with like grunge that just went into rock and then kind of broke off into industrial and ethereal, like,
Okay.
yeah. And then I kind of
Okay.
got like, and then I slowed down and went into like modern folk. I don't know. I'm like all over the place.
Yeah, me too. Me too. That's why I was throwing out those bands a little bit. I like a couple of their songs. What about Corn or Limp Bizkit?
Oh man. Okay. I'd go with corn for sure.
Okay. Okay. I like it. I like that. If you had 3 people to take on vacation to any vacation spot that you want to go to, who would those 3 people be to accompany you?
My boyfriend, he's a great traveler.
Okay.
Um, and are we talking like people we know or famous people?
However you want. There's no absolute answer.
Okay. Well, then I would go with my 2 kids because I like to show them new things and they're pretty appreciative given that they're teenagers. So those 3
Okay.
people.
Nice family trip. I like that. I like that. Okay. Last of the rapid fire. Which one would you rather do? Would you rather be a reporter out in the field or would you rather be anchoring?
I would rather be a reporter. I got into this because I enjoy storytelling. I
Hmm?
didn't get into it and not disparaging anyone who does, but I mean
Yeah.
I didn't get into it to be an anchor and sit on a set. I got into it because I enjoy meeting people and telling stories and so I'd rather be a reporter. That's also why I did the podcast because I started it when I was anchoring already and I missed being able to like tell stories.
And that was actually going to be one of my last questions. If anything else that you would like to add, and talk to me about the podcast and the idea of the podcast and why of starting that.
Yeah. So I would definitely encourage people to subscribe and like
Mhm.
the Borderline Crimes podcast. I did it because I believe that a community should tell their own stories. And as hard as those stories can be, telling stories about crime, I feel like we should know the people we've lost in our community as people rather than just as victims. And I feel like having covered the criminal justice system for so long, there is so much focus put on the perpetrator and the victim is usually lost. We see one photo, we see many, many videos and photos of and hear all sorts of things about the perpetrator. And I wanted to give victims and their families an opportunity to have a platform where they could talk about what they have gone through in the system.
Okay.
So borderline crimes. And also, like I mentioned earlier, I'm part of the planning committee for the El Paso Plaza Classic Film Festival. And the film festival happens every year. We're entering our, I believe, 17th year.
Wow.
And we just launched a podcast this year. The committee, a fellow committee member and I are doing a podcast. We have committee members come on. We have other people come on to talk about the film festival, and it runs July 18th through the 28th. And the podcast you can find anywhere you get podcasts. It's on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And you can learn about the film festival. And that is like a fun thing for me. I love watching movies, and being able to
Yeah,
talk about
absolutely.
movies with other people who like movies is a great, great mental health break from the perils of covering news.
Absolutely. No question about that. Definitely hope people tune into that. You've been an absolute terrific guest on here. No question about it. I thank
Yeah.
you for your time. And once again, if I'm ever in El Paso, I definitely will have to hit you up. That is for sure. I know you got some good spots there that we definitely could check out. No question. But I want you to have a great Thursday evening, a great rest of the week and weekend. And once again, thank you so much, Stephanie. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for reaching out to me and for your patience as we were trying to coordinate our calendars.
Absolutely. We're journalists that totally understand. You take care now.
All right. You have a good one. Thank you.
Bye bye.